We are walking through a series. We're almost to the end. Next week, we wrap up. So we're walking through the Gospel of John. We've been walking through it for some time now. And where we left off, Jesus comes and he presents himself now to his disciples for the first time. And all of them, on some level, were skeptical that Jesus had risen from the dead. They were all skeptical. Some of them needed to see the holes in his hands, but Thomas himself had to put his hands in the holes in his hands. And as we pick up now, he's going to appear to them again, and kind of just like humans, like they were just reminded who Jesus is, and now they've got to wrestle with some things that are going on as they try to revert to their old life. Now, before we get there, I'm going to put something up on the screen. Now, for some of you who are in my generation, this will be nostalgic for you. For those of you in the first two rows, you probably only know this in the more current version of itself. But this was a big deal when this came out. And when this came out, it changed, it revolutionized childhoods. See, before you had this, all you had was Atari. Just a joystick and a moving pong ball. But now we put people into video games. Super Mario Brothers. Not only did it come with this, but also Duck Hunt. And all the way back then, we had the technology to be able to make a gun in your hand, shoot something on the screen without anything extra. And now we got to buy all these cameras and VR devices. Super Mario Brothers was where it was at. It changed everything. It changed the game, literally. Now, the cool thing about Super Mario Brothers was you could go to like level 7 or whatever, like you could go advanced worlds. You could seriously go down one of these tubes and you could end up in a different level. Like it was crazy. But you could play that for hours, right? And if you play that for hours, you get to a place where you get to a level, and sometimes you would run into these like Koopa things or a fireball, or you would try and jump over a ledge, but there was only a little sliver of land on the other side, and you'd fall into the fire pit. And what would happen? Well, you wouldn't have to go all the way back to level 1. You came back to life, right pretty much where you died. There was a little bit of repentance, like you had to go back a little bit, but you'd have to start over. You got to redo. And they're like, all right, you failed. Try it again. And you hear this like ominous music, and then it takes you back to right before where you failed. And the truth is, like this week, we're going to talk about a guy in our story who gets a redo. He gets a redo from Christ, and we all need that. Look, there's some people here, I don't know very many of you, so maybe there's nobody here, but maybe there are, who make it their life's goal to make everybody think that their life is perfect. Like they don't need a divine redo at any point in their life. Like they did that once, and ever since they've been living this perfect life. And that's just not our story. See, our story is we all need a divine redo. In fact, I needed one yesterday. We're in a Connect group, right? So we're in this Connect group, and for the first time in our lives, Kristen and I are amongst the oldest in the group. And when you hang out with younger people, you do younger people things. And so yesterday, and to celebrate my birthday and the birthday of a couple other people, we decided we're going to go paintballing. I'm 42. And we were paintballing. We did great. By the way, the ladies in our group, they went and they did fantastic. They really crushed it, all of them. I was very proud. In fact, Kristen has earned the right to go downstairs when there's a burglar in our home. I no longer feel bad about it. She can handle herself. But I remember it was the second to last round. It was my last round. I'll get to that in a second. Second to last round, and I'm behind this red, like, C-train storage container on my side of the field. Like, I'm going back, and I turn around and I go backwards because I didn't see anybody on the other side. So I walk around the other side tactically, and I'm looking around the thing, and I hear footsteps, but they're behind me. And I turn my head, it was this way. I turn my head, and there's this college young adult guy. Like, I'm just like, oh no. And not only was he a college young adult guy, but he had like a paintball jersey on. So like he wasn't just like we had rental guns. And we were like, hey, we're new here. Just like shoot, can we get the softer guns? Like, he had a professional gun, y'all. No joke, his gun had a trigger so long that he could put 3 fingers on it so that he could go, bat, 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 bat. It was like a machine gun. So this dude sneaks up on me. And I'm looking around this corner and I hear the footsteps and I go, oh dang. And before I can even know what's happening, dude puts 5 rounds into my back. My back! I was like, 1 round would have sufficed. Like, I would have been like, I'm out. Like, you got me. Good job. Like, no joke. Like, you didn't even have to shoot me. You could have just said bang. I would have fallen on the floor. The guy puts 5 rounds into my back, and I got to confess, I said some things that are unholy. Like, I want you to know that I did that. I'm not perfect. I needed a divine redo yesterday. Like, I called him some things. And when he gets to be my age, he'll finally understand. We all need a divine redo. We all need that time where we repent. That time where we turn away from the things that we've messed up on, the sin in our lives. And luckily, we serve a God who puts that on display. If you have your Bibles, open up to John chapter 21. We're going to start in verse 1. It says, after this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias. And he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Now, that's a lot of the disciples. Not all of them were there, but most of them were there. It's a very public scene is what he's getting at, right? So then Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. Hey, y'all, I'm going fishing. We got to earn some money. We're going back to the way things were. Like, Jesus has raised from the dead, but that's all that's changed. Like, we're going fishing. And so he says, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we will go with you. You shouldn't be the only one to bring in the bacon. We're going to go with you. And so they went out and got into the boat. But that night, they caught nothing. So they went out all night, which is when the fish are plentiful, and they caught nothing. Now, just as day was breaking, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. So Jesus standing on the shore, the disciples don't know that it's him. And Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? And they answered him, no. And he said to them, now cast the net on the right side. This is a verse for Republicans in here. Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast it, and now they were not able to haul it in because of the quantity of fish. So John tells us this story of how Jesus comes upon them, and he's doing something that's remarkable. He's bringing us back to different events that have happened along the way. It's like one of those and it's like a flashback, right? So back in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, it explains to us the way that Peter was called to be a disciple in the first place. Look at what it says. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." And Simon answered, "Master, we toiled all night and took nothing, but at your word I will let down the nets." And when they had done this, they enclosed a large number of fish, and their nets were breaking. And Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching men." When they had brought their boats to land, they left everything and they followed him. And so now John brings us back to that moment where they're bookends in the following of Jesus, right? On one side, it's the calling. On the next side, it's going to be what turns out to be his commissioning of Peter. Now, what's interesting is that there's no place in between where they're recorded as fishing. It doesn't mean they didn't do it, but nobody writes about it. And so they've returned now to their old way of life. Like everything has gone down. Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and now they find themselves fishing back at the Sea of Galilee. That's where they're at. The Sea of Tiberias is another name for the Sea of Galilee. It was named a lot of different things. The Lake of Gennesaret also. They had many names depending on who was. It's like how Trump calls it the Gulf of America. The rest of the world calls it the Gulf of Mexico. It's kind of like that. So, oh darn. Okay. So that disciple, verse 7, that disciple whom Jesus loved, John, therefore said to Peter, "It is the Lord." He's looking from the boat. Jesus is on the shore, and he recognizes, mainly because of the load of fish that they just hauled in. Not because all of a sudden he got like supervision and could see. He looks and he remembers back to Luke chapter 5. And he's like, only the Lord could do this. When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment. He was in his bathing suit. He put on like his robe, like he put on his clothes. So he didn't want to approach Jesus in his bathing suit, which is why I'll never preach in a bathing suit. There you go. For he was, I know, even my wife says that. For he was stripped for work. I will also never strip for work. So there you go. And threw himself into the sea. What's interesting about this statement, that he threw himself into the sea, there's a lot of meaning here. So all throughout the Old Testament, the sea is used as a motif. The sea is representative of chaos and evil. So that's why when the disciples are out on the Sea of Galilee and it gets really rough, like that's why fear is present. And so the sea is used as an evil and a chaos motif. And so what's fascinating about this verse is it gives us a glimpse into the progression of Peter and his trust for Jesus. A progression. So way back in the gospel, we see this moment where Jesus is walking on water, and he calls Peter out in the water, and he says, "Lord, if you call me, I will come." Like, I don't want to. That sea is scary, but if you call me, I will come. Then he steps out of the boat. He's walking on water. And the chaos and the evil, the water starts to swell all around him, and he takes his eyes off of Jesus. And he begins to sink, and he's filled with fear. And in this moment, he sees Jesus, and he throws himself into the chaos because Jesus is there. He's not afraid. Fear is nowhere in this passage. This is trust. He knows his Lord and Savior is on the shore, and so he throws himself into the sea. And here's what's funny. I like the contrast. I still think that there's some sort of a rivalry between John and Peter. Like Peter throws himself into the sea, and John tells us the other disciples came in the boat. It's like you had another option, Peter. You threw your. I like the zeal. You love Jesus. I get it. Like you just decided to put on your best clothes and jump in the lake. Like, we're going to come in the boat. We're going to stay dry. We might even beat you there. Like I go back and forth, like whether, because it says that they were 100 yards off. I go back and forth whether or not you could swim faster than you could row at 100 yards. But you have a lot of people in the boat all pulling in the same direction, but you're pulling, I don't know. But the funny thing is, I like to picture that the other disciples got there first, and like Peter's like, and they're like, hey, buddy. We were dragging the net full of fish, and we were not far off from the land, but about 100 yards off. And when they get out on land, something significant is going to happen. It says, when they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place with fish laid out on it and bread. So they come ashore, and Jesus is already there. He'd been waiting for them to get there. He's probably laughing, like, look at Peter. He's swimming. He could have stayed dry in the boat. And he has this charcoal fire in place. And what he's doing is he's setting the scene. He's setting the scene. Because back in Luke, just a few stories ago, as we walk through John, Luke records the account of Peter's denial of Jesus. And it says in Luke 22, verse 55, and when they had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely at him, said, this man also was with him. And we know Peter's response. This is one of 3 times. It says, but he denied it, saying, woman, I do not know him. And Jesus is now recreating this scene. He's giving him a redo. It's different but the same. It's different but the same. And so Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish that you have just caught. So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore, full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Now, there's a lot of discrepancy on this verse in particular. Some people believe that Simon Peter pulled the net all by himself onto the shore. That's what the text says literally. Now, here's the problem with that. The only way that happens is with supernatural ability, like 153 large fish. There is nobody in here that can pull in 153 large fish in a single net. Now, he could have had supernatural strength. That's very possible. He could have had zeal that Jesus rewarded and allowed him to pull on shore. The other is that that John is just pointing out that Simon Peter, since he's at the focus of this story, pulled the net on shore. I don't know which one is true. I tend to take the Bible literally, but either could have worked. There's also a lot of conjecture on what the number 153 means, and a lot of it is hooey. Like, hooey's my technical term for like, I don't think you're right. And so what I'm inclined to believe is that number is just an accurate number. It's not representative of anything. That's where I'm at. Could change someday, but that's what I believe. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. The last time they pulled in, the net was torn. This time it was not torn. And so in verse 12, Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. I love that. He says, come and have breakfast. Now, none of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. And so Jesus says, hey, just circle up. Let's go. Let's eat a meal together. And the truth is, Jesus does really great work around a table with some food on it. And I think in our culture, we miss that a lot. See, we've come to this place where our culture, I've talked about this before, is a garage door culture. We finish our day of work and we pull into our house and we shut the garage behind us and we shut ourselves off to our neighborhood. When's the last time you had somebody over for a meal? They did it often. We do it rarely. We could do it more because a lot of good ministry happens around a dinner table. Now, I would assume if you want to change your neighborhood, one way to do it is by inviting your neighbors to have a meal with you. It's how Jesus did it, and I think it still works today. So he says, hey, let's have breakfast. And so Jesus came, and he took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. Now, we remember back early on in John chapter 5, Jesus brings them up on this mountaintop, this hill, it's not even a mountain, this hill, and he proceeds to have them help him feed 5,000 people with just some bread and fish. And what I find fascinating is that Jesus chooses bread and fish, and it could just be that that's what he had. But I think maybe what he's saying is, I'm getting ready to multiply you. I'm getting ready to do what we did in John chapter 5. I'm getting ready to send you out, Peter, and I want you to see the multiplication. Now, it's interpretive. It may not be the case, but I think that there's something there. And then in verse 14, it says, this was now the third time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Agapeo. Do you love me? Now, he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you, but he uses a different word. He uses the word for love, phileo. I phileo you. And he said to him, feed my lambs. Now, we're going to see this progression happen, and Jesus is going to change what he says each of the 3 times. So we've got 2 different words for love being used. We'll get to them in a minute. But for us, we just use the word love, right? I tell my wife I love her, and I tell donuts that I love them, and they're the same word. Now, we can imply context into the use of that word. Like, obviously, when I just said that, you laughed because you know I don't love donuts. I also don't talk to them. I don't love donuts as much as I love my wife, but we use the same word. In the Greek, they do not. They have multiple words for love, and it's a different type of love for each one. We'll get into that in a second. So he said to him a second time now. Remember, Peter had denied Jesus 3 times. So he said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love, agapeo, me? And he said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love, phileo, you. So Jesus is like knocking. He's like, come on, Peter, get there. Like, I know you can. And he said to him, tend my sheep. Now, I want you to understand the 2 different words being used here. So, agapeo is a selfless love that responded to the need of the one being loved, the other person, apart from any necessary involvement of the emotions. So, like, it's an unconditional love that is not self-serving. I don't love my wife because I get something out of it. This is a decisive love, a covenantal love. This is the love God always shows towards us, and we rarely show towards him. It's love that says, God, even when my life is not all right, I'm still going to choose to love you. God, even when my marriage is not perfect, I'm still going to choose to love you. This is an unconditional love. It's the love of God. It's the love that God calls us to show to others, but we often fail. Now, Jesus uses this word twice. And now Peter responds with the word phileo. It's a love that arose in the emotions and responded to what was attractive or what pleased or brought satisfaction to the one doing the loving. It's a self-serving love. Now, this is more of like a brotherly, sisterly love. It's a friendship love. But there's not a lot of friends. Like, all of us in this room have friends we no longer have because they did something to wrong us or whatever. It's not unconditional. Look, your love for your friends is not unconditional. You don't stay in relationships with them. For some it is. But what Peter is saying is, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'd like to be, but I'm not there. And so Jesus says something that's so like him. He said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love phileo me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you phileo me? He was grieved because Jesus had to change what he was asking him to a lesser type of love. And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. And so Jesus, in one act of love towards Peter, he meets him where he's at. He meets him where he's at. He's not to that unconditional love yet. But he meets him where he's at. Now, for some of you in here, Jesus needs to meet you where you're at. And I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what stronghold is present in your life. But what I know is, just like Peter, there are those of us in the room who need a divine redo this morning. The beauty of the gospel is not that we accepted it one time and that it made one difference in our life. It's that it washes over us every single day. And really, when we pretend we're better than we are, we pretend the gospel is less important. So here's what I want you to know. No matter how you came to church this morning, no matter what last night looked like, no matter if you cussed at some college guy that shot you 5 times in the back, whether your marriage is struggling, whether your kids are struggling, whether you looked at something on the internet that you shouldn't have. It's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there. That's what Jesus said to Peter. He looked back on the denial and he says, it's okay to not be okay, but let's do a redo. Let's start over. And as he gives Peter this charge that says it's okay not to be okay, it's just not okay to stay there, he moves Peter forward, right? Last we left off with Peter, he was denying Jesus 3 times. Now Jesus gives him this public opportunity to affirm him, and all 3 times he affirms him. But is Peter perfect? No. Has he arrived? No. And neither have any of us. This is a church where, as long as I have anything to do with it, it's going to be okay to not be okay. I want messy people. Look, I want you to be messy. We already are. Like, if mess is not out on the table, we can't clean it up. I want our church to be messy. I want you to know this place is a place where it's okay not to be okay. But I also want you to know that the message of the gospel, the message that we will preach to you, the message that we will walk you through, the message that will guide your life after you recognize that you're not okay, is that it's just not okay to stay there. Jesus wants more for your life. He has something to offer you in your not being okay, which is you don't have to stay there. Now, as Peter is standing there, Jesus gives him 3 commissions. I want you to understand this. So I have a deep belief in pastoral restoration, which means if you fail, you're not out forever. And it's because of this passage. Watch what Jesus does. Peter denies him 3 times, and now we fast forward, and he commissions him 3 times. He commissions the failure, the one who wasn't above reproach, the one who didn't unconditionally love him. And he says that the role of a pastor, because Peter's now going to go pastor the church. Now look, I do have to say this. We're in this age where we just had like the first American pope, right? And the Catholic Church is doing all that, and it's on all the news channels because apparently Fox News is Catholic now. And look, we can look at that and we can go, yeah, that's because of a misinterpretation of the passage of the Greek in a passage of Scripture where Jesus says, "On this rock I will build my church." It's a misunderstanding of the Greek there. He wasn't talking about Peter, he was talking about Jesus on this rock. But while we can say we don't have a pope, we cannot say that Peter did not play a significant role in the early church. He certainly did. And so Jesus now calls him not to be a pope, but to be a pastor. And he gives him 3 callings. First, feed my lambs. In other words, nourish new and weak believers. Nourish them. Give them what they need. Nourish the kids. Nourish the students. Nourish those who are new in the faith. Second, Jesus says, also tend my sheep. Tending is a very physical activity. It's what you do. Protect, guide, and watch over the congregation. Be a shepherd. And then finally, he says, feed my sheep. Provide ongoing spiritual nourishment to mature believers. Now, if you come to this church, if you call this church your home, and I hope each and every one of you do or will in the future, I need you to know something. I will fail. I will. Here's the thing. I cannot be all things to all people, and I won't. I will not sacrifice my family on the altar of ministry. I won't do it. But here's what I will do. I'll feed the lambs, and I'll tend the sheep. When you need me, I'll be there. Unless I'm on the beach in Florida, then call somebody else. And I'll feed you the word of God. This is what I will do because this is what Jesus calls pastors to. This is what Jesus calls pastors to do. Now, I can't be everybody's best friend. I'm not even that good of a best friend. Like, you don't want that in your life. But I can facilitate relationships. Jesus calls Peter to be a pastor, a broken failure of a follower. Now Jesus restores and gives him purpose. And what we see is that Jesus gives Peter a divine redo. He starts over just a little bit before he ran into that fire, a little bit before he hit the kupa. Jesus gives him a divine redo. Now, here's your takeaway for the week. It's a beautiful thing because what we see in this passage is also what we see in our lives. It's in our failure that Jesus does his greatest work. A lot of us, man, we got this idea, I think it was instilled in us at an early age by bad theology, that says, no, you got to have your whole life together. You come to church, you put on a suit, and that suit symbolizes the fact that you've been changed. And when you've been changed, now your life is perfect, and you got to come pretending like everything's fine, like you didn't just get in a fight with your spouse in the car right here. Like your kids didn't just pick their nose and wipe it on the church chair. One of you is sitting there, by the way. Like you've somehow arrived. But that's not what the gospel says. The Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, he puts it this way. He says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. You don't have to have it all together. In fact, you have to embrace that you don't. That's the message of the gospel, is us going, I don't have it all together, so whatever good you see in me, that's Jesus. Whatever good's going on in my life, that's Jesus. The fact that somehow this church is growing, that's not me, it's Jesus. And it's not you either. Jesus is the good in us. Apart from him, our greatest deeds are like filthy rags. Because the truth is that it's in our failure that Jesus does his greatest work. And for some of you in here, you need a divine redo. You came to church in a place where you don't want anybody to know, but you're struggling. Life is not as it should be. It doesn't look like you want it to look. You've made decisions that you shouldn't have made. You've looked at things you shouldn't have looked at. You've spoken to your wife or your husband in a way that you shouldn't have spoken to him. You're more controlling than you ought to be. Whatever your sin of choice is, fill in the blank. And the good news is that we have the same God who sat Peter down around a fireplace and restored him from a place of failure to a place of calling. Now, for some of you, you're in need of that same thing. I want to invite you to something that I think will help. It's a program we have here. It's called Regeneration. And Regeneration is a place that literally coined the phrase, it's okay to not be okay, it's just not okay to stay there. That's what they build their whole program on. Like if for some reason you're not okay, go to Regen. It's a long process, I'm not going to lie. You get senioritis around the end of it, I'm not going to lie. But it's a program that will have a profound effect on someone who's sitting here right now going, I'm not okay, but I want to be. We have two options for you. Starting in the fall, on Thursday nights, in August, we've got the full program. Closed group, where you can dive in and work on the things that Jesus wants you to work on in a manner that's programmed out, planned out, really well thought out, and prayed out. With other guys or other girls that are walking through their own stuff. But until then, you may be saying, well, that's great. Sign me up for that. But what about for the next few months? That will require you switching services. I'm okay with that if you are. But right now, down the hall, we've got a group of people doing what's called open groups. It's the basics. It's intro. And I don't care if you haven't ever been to Regen before and go, it's the middle of the semester. Todd, you okay with it? Yeah, he leads our academy, so we're good. He's academy boss, like a mob boss for academy. I don't care if you've never been to Regen before, just go next week. Stop in there. Start doing the work now so that when the fall hits, you're ready to go. Because ultimately, it's okay to not be okay, but nobody in this church is going to say it's okay to stay there. Nobody in this church is going to delight in your sin, and we don't want you to either. Jesus is bigger than that. He's the source of restoration in your life and mine. And it's not a one-time deal. It happens every single